I go by the pen name of HACKS, or HACKS6, occasionally, if I can be bothered to put the 6 on the end.
Oh, I didn't see you there. Welcome.
I would say, I don't know, yeah, I'm a multidiscipline artist, but mostly focus on doodle art, if that's kind of the right term for it. Like intricate pattern work with characters and other kind of visual simplifiers in there. But then I branch out into kind of a bit of sculpture. Anything I do make sculptural wise is kind of a found object, maybe compile found objects to make a surface to paint on top of, or repurpose things. Predominantly I focus on photography, mixed media, artwork and doodling. And that's what I do. I make stuff and things.
It's like the bane of my life is my bamboo pen, because I'm always leaving it in random places. As you can see, this is how old my software is. I'm working on Firefox, I can't even download Chrome. Star Wars edition of the Hammer magazine. This is like my weird influence. It goes from like this horror shit to like this like funny shit. Some like random weird shit. Yeah. Except he accidentally has spelling mistakes all the way through it. I like doing photography as well. So like, I don't know, I like social documentary photography more. Like I used to take more of this kind of stuff. Hence why like I buy this kind of stuff, like Harry Conway and people like that. Been more working on like architectural, kind of more brutalist style, black and white photography. Because I don't have access to a darkroom, it's more like mirrorless cameras and shit like that. Oh hi, welcome to my crib. Sorry, it's a little bit of a mess in here. Ed Templeton, like Strand, who did The Businessman Walking on, oh, what the fuck do you call it? You should cut that bit. Businessman Walking on Wall Street with the long shadows. I basically just really like shadows a lot. Martin Parr, Richard Heaps, Cambridge G. Just give me something to doodle on and it's all good. Dempster. There we go. Don't think anyone will miss this fridge though. Oh, they haven't got supplies. Actually, to be fair, I used to hang around in these kind of places all the time when I was younger. Election Day 2019, welcome to the end. Willkommen. I don't know if the spelling's right. Actually, most of my work isn't this quick, so... WrestleMania. Nice. sunny day, the clouds are out. Anything's possible. Yeah, that's weird. It's like a little shrine. Should probably look for things to make shit out of here as well. Who lives in a house like this? Not me. Maybe under Tory government, I will be living here soon. Yeah, this one was really weird. I remember coming around here at some point. I was just taking photos and like looking for places to paint and stuff. And there was like a whole fucking PS1 set up and everything. I don't know if they somehow still had power in here or something. But they were rocking Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 as well, so you know, they had taste even if they didn't have money. My biggest influences are people like Miro, Matisse, Picasso, Paul Klee, Lucian J, and then like graph influences like the Sheryo and the Yock, you would like seeing Dyke and Kush up and stuff, and obviously Penfold is, I used to see his work on the spoon-fed flyers, so I kind of grew up seeing that outside fairs and like seeing them plastered around places and stuff. So I love his character work, but now obviously he's moving more of an abstract route, and I know I'd probably say I'd do the same, but I still have quite a lot of character-based stuff. There's a really good book that influenced me quite a lot in when I was at university, and that's the Codex Seraphinianus. It's basically like a made-up encyclopedia of things that don't exist, and throughout the whole thing it's got it's not really been said yet whether, or been found out yet, whether it's a completely made-up language or it's an actual code, but there's writing throughout the book. Automatic writing feel to it. It's quite like abstract, and it doesn't really play a lot on the kind of normal alphabetic forms of language as we know it. And then that's got kind of like abstract kind of drawings of things like two crocodiles merging into one on a bed and like then crawling off, and that was pretty cool. Yeah, I was kind of like brought up on like ska and stuff, so like the Beat, the Selector, like Madness, Specials, X-Ray Specs, like reggae, like kind of like Sugar Minot and Barrington Levy and stuff like that, like from my parents' generation. Kind of obviously like 90s hip hop, like Wu-Tang, Tribe Called Quest and shit like that, and then punk like Dead Kennedys and like the Buzzcocks and stuff like that, and like some like American hardcore like Black Flag and stuff, but that's not really as much my bag, but yeah. It's like a really sick thing to work on with like guys that I do look up to like stylistically and stuff, and like they're my peers, and like I went to university with Nathan Bowden, Newballs, who we've also worked on other things like a zine called Dassist, Trebon, and like Mr. Scribbs and Otter Dojo. They're like all really sound guys, and we had fun just like kind of like a natural progression of like hanging out and then being like, right, well, should we do something, because we're like talking about it and what we can do with it, so might as well just commit and do it, even if it's like just to do it, because it wasn't really ever like a big thing. It wasn't ever meant to be like a big thing, but it was fun, and like I enjoyed doing that, like creating some like new work that I thought that I had to kind of like push myself, because a lot of my work is quite immediate. I like to see things quickly appearing. Working towards a show is like a bit of a long, laborious task, so it was cool to like stick that out and come home and work on the same piece like every night, instead of having quite an immediate thing of like drawing the outline, scanning it, colouring it, and having like digital prints of it instead. Like that's how I'd usually work, but instead having actual large scale pieces. Toot motherfucker. Dicks and skulls and shit. So that's not a bone, it's a two-way dick. Two-way dick on your back. I do remember it being a lot more kind of fluid and like affluent and thriving than it is now. We're having like Route 1 and skate shops like HACKS and Billy's and stuff like that, and you had kind of like a place to, like kind of like a hub for it to form around. Then you had like graffiti shops like Unify that were selling, I think they were the first people to sell like Supreme Being and stuff like that. Going to shit like Doodle Jam and stuff like that, they'd have like an event like every month, and I'd go and hang around like these older guys that were like I looked up to, that were like, there'd be DJs and there'd be like open mic rap battles and shit like that, and people just like doodling on stuff. I remember like going into those shops always being super stoked on like seeing what they were doing and like looking up to them as like cool local heads. But obviously now I think everyone just grew up and moved to Bristol. There's hope for like the next generation, but I think maybe I'm stuck in the middle of those two generations. Like obviously the political climate is coming to a point where things do need to change, and like there's a lot happening in politics with like the general election coming up, with the ongoing Brexit negotiations, with also like multiple things happening around the world and other political things. Like we have Donald Trump in the White House and stuff, and we got Boris Johnson in power here, and that can be like disenfranchising. So maybe my work is kind of helps like turn a blind eye to that kind of thing, because sometimes it can make a reference to it, but sometimes it's more like just trying to be the opposite to the way you feel when you think about Boris Johnson being a Prime Minister. Maybe it's like there to cheer you up a bit, I don't know. Poking fun but making a point underneath it. Ooh, mushrooms. I actually haven't picked up a pen in the last week. Just had a bit of a creative lull, which is not good. I think my favourite mammal, probably a sugar baby, because they're like a souped up, flying, awesome squirrel, and squirrels are pretty sick as well. I think a blue jay. I like birds a lot. Oh, tent pegs. I've obviously never been here before. Someone's standing here munching up some pre-Christmas sweets. Just standing here munching in the outdoors. I think that's probably my favourite animal. The blue tit. There's a lot of tits in England, but the blue tit is my favourite. I want to do a whole building. I like to paint the whole side of a building. That's probably one of like the bucket lists. I think the biggest biggest compliment for my work would be being in a GCSE art student's sketchbook, because I always remember that part of like art education being the best bit about looking at other people. And like, even though at the same time during art education I was always thinking that there was not a point to it, your teachers do know best a lot of the time, and there was a point to it, or else I wouldn't have explored half as many kind of different avenues of artistic flair that I have. I think that's the coolest point, is like when people can go, yeah, that's his work, and know it as yours without it being misconstrued as possibly being someone else's because you've borrowed too much of their style. Which you do see a lot with people, where they kind of, like, it's very important to have heroes, but don't try and be your hero. Just be influenced by your hero. Yeah, we can go to Beefeater and have a pint, I suppose. Like, some people don't mind doing what people want them to do for them. Like, obviously I have to bend a little bit for like commission work and things like that. Most of the time I like to think that people are coming to commission me for stuff that looks like my work, and like that always like brings the best, like most organic finish to the work. If someone just doesn't fuck around with what I usually do. What was the question again?